Howdy, Desert Boy here. I got something really interesting I want to chat with you today about. What I want to talk about today is what about if you like, your 45 ACP, 1911, 1911A1, you love this single action only trigger, but you're just getting tired of racking it and so forth. Or maybe you really don't like carrying it cocked and locked. Maybe it wasn't something that you really like doing, but you love having that single action only trigger. So you saw the guns that were out here today, and you probably thought, what does that have to do with 45 ACP? Well, this Ruger Vaquero happens to be a 45 ACP. It came with the 45 ACP and a 45 Colt cylinder, so you can use 45 ACP in here. Now, it is a single action only, and so we'll go ahead right now. We'll talk more about it in a minute, but we'll check that it's unloaded. But the nice thing about it is you get the nice, crisp, soft trigger that, easy trigger that you get with the 1911, right? So let's check the 1911 out. It's got a magazine that's empty. This is a Springfield Armory mil-spec 1911A1. Okay, take the safety off there so we can show that the gun is empty. We'll put it back. Is empty still. Most of the time people carry these cocked and locked. Maybe you just don't feel comfortable doing that. And once again, racking this slide is not that easy sometimes. And what about the other gun you saw? So you saw this one. Usually when you see this one, it's a 45 Colt and a 45 Colt 410 Bond arms. In this case, it happens to be a roughneck. But this one is a 45 ACP and a 45 ACP. So let's go ahead and check this guy unloaded. It does have a cross bolt safety here and it's on. Put this in safe direction. These are unusual because you have to flip the barrel back, but we can see that it is indeed unloaded. Okay, so why do I have these out here? And you're thinking, well, why would you want to do that, Well, sometimes, like I said, you get to where it's just maybe cocked and locked. Maybe it's not as easy to rack the slide. One thing I will say is none of the options I'm going to show you are going to be as fast to reload as changing a magazine. Okay, but I will show you a couple of things that, I just like keep an open mind and think about, is that a possibility? Because you really want to figure out what works best for you. Talk to your friends, your experts, follow your local state and federal firearms laws, etc., as we always have said, and be safe. That's the most important thing. So this guy here, normally, it's going to be locked back when it's empty. We've already checked it empty. And we said, well, maybe this gun is not the one for me, but I want to have a really nice, easy trigger. So let's look at this Ruger Vaquero and see what it offers in that way, okay? Now, since it's single action only, you cannot fire this gun unless you cock the hammer. When you cock the hammer and then you pull the trigger, it's going to come down and it's going to fire a round. If the hammer is not cocked and you pull the trigger, nothing happens because this is not a double action only. You have to pull the trigger, pull the hammer, and then pull the trigger, and it's going to fire the gun. The other thing is once you fire your 6 rounds, right, you're going to have to reload. To reload, you're going to have to use the ejector to push a bullet out. Maybe some people do all 6 of them and didn't load it. Some people do one, then they put a bullet in. They do one, they put a bullet in. It just depends on what your situation is when you need to reload. So that's not going to be as fast. Is there things that we could use maybe as tools to help us with that? Well, there are some people that have suggested that when you're trying to do this kind of reload, right, that maybe a way to carry your ammunition, if you have a 45 ACP cylinder, is just use your 1911 magazines. Now, this happens to be an A-Zoom snap cap type thing that's a dummy round. And they suggest that you just slide your round in off of your magazine into the cylinder to reload. That way you got your ammunition handy, and then you can just reload, maybe a little easier than, putting them in your hand or carrying them in your pocket. The other advantage to that is you can carry them in your magazine holder, right? So you get your magazine holder here. You can carry it in your magazine holder still. And that's a 10-round one. You probably have a 7 or 8 round, so it'll get a little shorter. Or you might want to carry it in something like this Gideon pocket carrier from Crossbreed, something like that. Just something to consider. You could also have them in speed strips, which makes them not just floating around in your pocket. But once you get the first one in, it's kind of hard to go ahead and line up the other ones. But at least you could take them off of here and put them in there. So that's your couple of options maybe to consider, something to think about. Maybe you've thought about it, maybe you've heard about it before, but something for you to think about. Okay, what about the Bond Arms Derringer? Okay, it's got a safety on here. You want to make sure everything's in the right direction. When you open it up, you're going to have to eject the rounds, and then maybe you could use a speed strip. Once again, these are A-zooms on there. Or you might even still be able to use this method using the sliding it out of the magazine into there. Just something to consider. Now this gun too is a single action, right? In order to fire it, you have to make sure the safety is off and in a firing position. You have to manually cock it, and then you have to pull the trigger, right? And for it to fire, and it comes down. And with these, you don't want to dry fire them. They recommend you have snap caps in them, but I'm just showing you. You still got to pull the hammer back and then pull the trigger for it to fire. So it's a single action only as well. And why do I show you both of these? Well, because you can't reload as fast, you still might want to have a backup. This might work as a backup because it's the same caliber as this guy, right? Anyway, how would you carry these? Well, I personally find carrying revolvers like this, a lot of people like to carry them cross draw, right? This is an Azula holster. It's cross draw right here. One thing that's nice is Bond Arms there's holsters that Crossbreed makes that you can fit that in. Now, how does this work and how is this helpful? Well, if you're using your single action only, remember you only got 6 rounds, then you got to eject them before you can reload. If you still had a threat, right, it gives you an option of having at least 2 more rounds maybe to protect yourself in the meanwhile, till you can get to a place where you can reload more easily and safely for you. So that's something to consider. The other thing is, if you wore this in a strong side holster on this side, they make them in left and right. So I also have a left side one. I was carrying this strong side over here. It would be in my left hand, but at least I would have another firearm available to protect myself until I was in a position to go ahead and reload. So just some things to think about when you're kind of in this kind of mode. Certainly you could use this as a backup if it's 45 ACP to your 1911 if you wanted to as well. So, but I just wanted to have this discussion about what you could do maybe to get the single action only trigger benefit out of 45 ACP by using a revolver, recognizing maybe you're in a position where you don't need to be as concerned about reloading as fast. You have to make your own evaluation, and still having a backup, right, in case you need protection while you're waiting to reload. It's a single action trigger, so it's going to be, nice and smooth, more like the one that's in the 1911, but you don't have to do any slide racking. Okay, you do have to do the whole reloading regime, and you have to pull the hammer back to fire it. It's not going to cycle like in 1911. The benefit of this guy, uses the same ammo, also single action, but it's just kind of a backup in case you just need a couple of extra rounds to keep you safe until you can reload. We've talked about using speed strips for them. We've talked about maybe using your 1911 mags to keep your ammo organized and using a pocket carrier for your ammo, or just your regular 1911 mag carriers. So just wanted to kind of get you to think about some other ways of enjoying 45 ACP, and maybe you don't want to, you can't do the whole racking of the thing, or you don't want to do the cocked and locked carry anymore. Something else to consider. You know, I got some really nice responses on a single action only for self-defense. I appreciate that. And a lot of discussion from people about the concealed carry, you know, dilemma in my search for other concealed carry guns. So I thank you very much. I'm past 600 subscribers now, so, you know, I know it's not a lot, but for me it is, and I will come out with a video here pretty soon, kind of compiling some different things as a thank you for all of you. So, as Reed Desert Boy always says, be safe out there, whatever you're doing, and if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye now.